Well, if whether it puts you at ease or puts you not at ease, coming up on well, I've been doing weekly album reviews every week, and of course I'll be doing this one on Friday as well. I will have done 300 this year.
Yeah,
So
that's crazy.
saying that I really like this one out of 300 albums that I've checked out this year, I think says a lot.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. Oh, there he is. Um, yeah, thank you for saying that. I'm just really happy you like it.
Oh, likewise, and hearing what you say means a lot to me as well.
Yeah. Hey, Sky.
Hey, hey, what's going
Hey,
on,
what's up?
guys?
How you
Hey,
doing?
Hi.
I'm good, just chilling.
very nice
Sweet.
shirt.
Yeah.
Got the necrophage, so
Yeah, I think that's
necrophage.
Classic,
the same
classic.
shirt that Asher, the same exact one that Asher wore in his playthrough video
Playthrough, yeah.
recently.
Is it? You have this one?
Close.
Oh, well, it's not quite exactly the same, actually.
A necrophage, sure.
Yeah. But yeah, sweet. We're all here, so great.
Oh,
Thanks for joining, you guys.
and a huge thank you to all three of you for doing this. I mean, it would have been great to just talk to you, Max, but I'm so happy I get to talk to the full band because this really does feel like a new era for the Mantle. And I can, honestly, from checking out what the band originally was to what you are now, and just seeing the vast difference that it is now, and something that is really near and dear to me emotionally speaking, musically speaking, it's like right in my wheelhouse of what I love to listen to. It's so awesome to be able to talk to all three of you.
Well, yeah, thank you again for I'm just again just really happy that you like it. I mean, I know you're a big fan of like melodic death metal and, progressive metal and stuff, so I guess that it falls within those genres, but yeah, just happy you like it.
First question, you didn't change just to appease me, right?
Yeah, well, not consciously at least. Yeah. I mean, the decision to like so yeah, I'll just give a little background on the album, like how I started to write it and stuff. Like after the first one came out, we played a good, I don't know, maybe like a dozen shows. Like Sky joined after that period, but Asher and our former band member Jake and we were playing some shows in the like New York area and stuff, and then COVID hit, and I was writing stuff and like trying to come up with more instrumental metal, and just like I came up with a lot of ideas that I just like didn't feel that strongly about, and then it was actually like uh Winter Sun's album, the Forest Seasons. I think I was listening to that a lot at the time, and I thought, like, what if I tried to do a concept album that was like very concrete, like about some very, very concrete story that I could write about. I was brainstorming and like thinking about, just anything that could be interesting to write about. And then I was watching a lot of space documentaries and was like, yeah, maybe I could make an album about the solar system. And then started out instrumental, and then just the music kind of had gaps in it that I felt like I couldn't fill with instruments. And then I decided to start trying the vocals, and it took a while. And Sky helped me a lot actually near the beginning with like I went over to his place and we like did a couple hours of vocal recording, and like he gave me some helpful tips too. And yeah, so and then since then I've just been having a lot of fun with the vocals. And Sky already did vocals like long before that for his own band Frog, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with Frog, but
I'm actually not. I'm very intrigued. What is Frog about?
It's Frog with two G's. We're not the Italian band, we're the OG American one. It's like I don't know what it really is. Maybe Max has like more accurate verbiage for what it should be called, but it's like technical, melodic, prog, death metal, some melange of all those three, really.
yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Good
Yeah.
description.
Sounds very
I was
intriguing. I'm gonna check that out after this.
Yeah, I mean it's really really awesome stuff. You should check it out.
Hmm, totally. So, and speaking of that, when did a vocal, I mean, obviously with training yourself to be able to learn how to do the vocals, and especially in a distinct style like this, when did it start to feel like it was going in the right direction?
Well, yeah, it took, I would say, I mean, right at the beginning, I could tell, like, once I started to try stuff, like, I knew that I wanted to have vocals on it pretty much right after I started trying to add vocals, and I kind of knew what I wanted it to sound like, which is like, you know, going for like a Mikhail Ackerfeld sound, like lower growls but then yeah, it took like about 2 years, I think, before I recorded stuff that I was actually somewhat happy with. So I think pretty much everything that's on the album is like 2 years in of me doing vocals. Like, and I recorded, hundreds of takes of every song basically. And then, none of those will see the light of day because it's just like, yeah, it took a while. And even now listening to the vocals, like part of me was like, I wish I could just do it all again because I've gotten better. Like I've practiced a lot since
Same
then. But
here. I feel the same about mine as well.
about your drums,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that's natural though, and I'm still really happy with how it came out. And but yeah, probably about 2 years before it like really started to feel decent. And then something that I realized, like I I was like going for these specific sounds, like thinking like try to do as low of a growl as possible, or like do a high scream at this point. But then like I realized, listening to like Opeth, for example, Mikhail Ackerfeld will like go low to high and do these like it's very natural, like the way he changes the variations in his vocals. And so I think towards the end of the recording process, I was like starting to think less about trying to do one thing specifically and started to feel like I could just naturally express myself. But still, it's yeah, it's hard to like he makes, he, for example, makes it sound so easy, but yeah, it's hard hard to do that and make it sound natural.
Well, I told you privately when I first got to hear the album, like I could hear the Opeth influences in there. To me, it also sounded like some Edge of Sanity stuff that's going on there as well too. But like this whole progressive death metal technical stuff that's going on, like you're still showing off some of the shreddy side of what I know you're capable of doing. But there's like so much melody and harmony that's going on there as well too, and the great dynamics. And it really feels like between the three of you, you have this formula that's really coming together strong throughout the entire album of knowing how to play for the song, but still being able to show off who you are as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I think I'm always gonna want to like have some shreddy stuff going on, but yeah, like I was also messaging you about like I realized that I love like the heavy atmospheric stuff as well, and like shredding is great, but it's like kind of empty on its own. And I mean, Sky's song, for example, also is like extremely technical, but I love how that one came out, and like it's probably the hardest song that we that we play. The song's Planetary Accretion is like Sky wrote that whole song, and but even that one, like it's very shreddy and very technical, but I'm really happy with how it came out because like it has some really epic groovy parts too.
And that leads me to wonder. I mean, obviously, you had so many ideas of what you wanted to do with this album, but with you, Asher, and Sky, like, how did you feel like joining the band for this album and like knowing what you wanted to do, what you wanted to be able to accomplish, and still make it work for the album?
Well, Sky actually joined like towards the end of the writing process, and I had basically, we're also like recording already, and so the song that he added it wasn't like an afterthought, but it was like the last addition, and like the order of the songs also is like very important because it's a story, and so I was thinking like where could there be one more song? Like Sky had already written a lot of that song, but we weren't sure like exactly what it would be about at the beginning. But then I realized because the first half of the album is about like the setup for Earth being able to exist basically with like the sun forming and then Jupiter and Saturn. And then there's this period of planetary accretion, which is like, the scientific term for the formation of a planet. And there wasn't a song specifically about that, so it worked out. And the song like also fit the vibe of like that like chaotic, hectic process of like rocks swirling around and forming planets and like breaking up and reforming and stuff. I don't know, it just like felt like the right place in the album. And then Sky wrote the lyrics for it based on that idea.
Yeah, and that's what had me so curious, like finding out that that was basically the final song written for the album, because it feels like it was all written together. Like, had you told me like all the songs were written all together at the same time, I would have believed you because it fits so perfectly amongst all the other tracks.
Yeah, it really it felt very natural to add it to that point in the album too. It just like yeah, it worked out.
I mean, Max is giving me a little too much credit. Like I wrote like the core of the song, but like Asher can attest when we went to do drums at his studio out in Long Island, I kind of just like guitar monkey spoke to him what I wanted and like said things that were like guitar player language and he kind of translated it. So and like Max modified a bunch of stuff in the song too and like added his like spice of things. Like that breakdown riff was not at all
Oh
what
yeah,
ended up being on the on the record. So it was still kind of like yeah, I came up with the bulk of the format of the song, but like Max came up with the theme. Asher did all the drums. We didn't write drums. I didn't program
well
drums
yeah,
or anything.
exactly.
So
Yeah, Asher, I mean, it's good to talk about. It's something we've talked about recently too, like the fact that, drums get sometimes you don't get credit as a drummer for like coming up with these parts, which, it's like you might be writing drum parts to a song that exists already, but it's still hard to come up with like interesting drum parts. So it's like that is a part of writing the song as well.
Yeah, so thinking about that, Asher, what was it like for you to like go into and like add your spin into these songs?
It was fun. I mean, Max basically initially sent me program drums that, to fill out the textures of the song and to give me an idea of whether you wanted, double time or half time or, the vibe of the dynamics in each part kind of. And I would kind of go back and improvise over it and eventually come up with parts when we basically over the last, I guess, 3 years, I built a home studio in Long Island that Sky was referring to before about that session when we were recording his song out there. But we recorded all the drums out there, which was a process because I kind of have been learning how to record myself. I never really had much experience in the studio. Most of my experience has been a live drummer. So yeah, basically I would write kind of on the spot as I was recording the song. And Max would, give me his input. And he would also be there pretty much engineering the session with me because as a drummer, it's a little difficult to go back and forth between turning knobs on the, gear and playing and, it makes a lot. And of course, Max wants to be there and wants to, help. But
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. That was, yeah, it was just basically, besides when Sky was there for recording the drums for his song, it was basically me and Asher in the studio recording the drums. And yeah, I mean, Asher, you called it a home studio, but it's like, it's like especially at this point with the new gear that you have, it's like a real professional studio. Basically, it wasn't like an actual barn building, but it's essentially like a converted barn type building that's now this sick drum recording studio.
Yeah, it's
At the
like
drum
a
farm.
loft style guest house, I guess is the best description for it. That we turned into like a, split it up into a control room and a live room, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's like it's really cool. I feel like we're probably we're gonna record probably all of our drums there, forever because it's like yeah, it's a great thing to have. Otherwise, like because drums, like just to talk more about how we actually recorded everything. I recorded and Sky recorded guitar at home, DI, and then we reamped stuff like in this little Brooklyn rehearsal space that we rent. But drums, you have to record them live. So, and then Sky also recorded all the bass for the album, just to make sure you know that as well, which was also DI and like reamped. And then the vocals, Sky and I recorded at our respective homes. And like I have a little vocal booth that I built. And like basically everything besides drums can be done much more easily at home or like maybe with a small little space to mic up a guitar amp. But yeah, you need
Yeah.
a serious studio to record good drums.
Yeah. Typical like piecemeal like recording approach, modern recording approach.
Yeah,
And I really appreciate that you do put that much effort into it, like building everything yourself to make yourself sound the best that you possibly can, and going that real, true DIY approach. And especially when it comes to the drums, I mean, it's so easy to go like, "Hey, why don't we just use drum samples? Why don't we just use drum programs to do this?" I know there's a lot of albums that will do that anyways from some of the top pro bands out there, but I will always love hearing the authentic drum sound. And especially as a drummer myself, I notice those things. So knowing that you actually took the time and effort to build a full-on drum studio to make sure that you're going to get the best sounds that you possibly can, they're going to sound real and authentic. I really appreciate that from the listener aspect.
Thanks.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that studio was like, something Asher, I think, had been dreaming of doing for a long time, and then finally got the opportunity to do it like a few years ago. And the timing actually just worked out perfectly because like right when it was basically done, like sound treated and stuff was right when we were ready to start recording. So, and the recording process, like it took way longer than a typical process for whatever reason. Like, I mean,
Well,
I guess it's
basically
because,
because I hadn't written the parts really
yeah,
like advanced, and we kind of, as I was recording stuff, was just like recording different ideas, and we would figure out we would
yeah,
which takes we liked, and so it was kind of built on improvisation to a certain extent.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
It's
true. And
That's why it took a lot longer because it was writing and
yeah,
recording, instead of having everything lined up perfectly and having to pay, I mean, of course I invested money in my studio, but having to go and rent a studio is way more expensive than that. You know, and so having to do that is in one day is a whole different thing than writing it and recording it throughout, I guess, however many weeks we spent doing that. I guess each song we did, we spent like 2 days on average, right? Like two
yeah,
full.
yeah, that's probably about right. It's just that we did it over the period of basically a full year because we would
Yeah.
go out to the studio, which is at the end of Long Island. So it's like well, Sky lives in Stamford, Connecticut, and then Asher and I live in New York City. And so drive a couple hours out to the studio, spend a couple days out there, and then every few weeks or every month or so, we'd go basically just do one song at a time. So yeah, that was not the most efficient way to do it, probably, but I mean, it, you know. I also, though, needed kind of all that time to record vocals. Like I kept re-recording vocals basically like until I couldn't do it anymore, like until I ran out of time, like and everything else was done. So it was actually good. I think the vocals turned out better because I had more time to just keep redoing them.
And you redid the reamping on the guitars.
Yeah,
Wow.
that too, which I learned basically learned how to reamp guitars for this album as well. So
Yeah, and I think it really shows the dedication that all of you have when it comes to this. I mean, rather than just saying, "Oh, that's good enough," you wanted to make sure it was the best that it possibly could be. It's going to have the most authentic sound to what you're looking for. And of course, you're always going to look back on it and wish that you could do something a little bit better on it. I mean, that's just the power of hindsight. But, the fact that you did put all that time and effort to make sure that instead of it's instead of doing takes that you weren't proud of, but you felt like it was passable. You really did the best that you could with it.
yeah, I mean, it's true, especially learning how to do the vocals. Like I kept not being happy with them even to the end. But yeah, I mean, I did my best. Everyone did their best with everything, and I think it turned out as well as it possibly could have, given like a somewhat reasonable amount of time to record everything. So
I mean, there is a benefit to not being signed, even though we really want to be signed, but the benefit of not being signed is that we can take as long as we want to
yeah,
do our thing.
yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, definitely. So thinking about that again, it's just like it keeps going through my mind, just like so much of the change from the first album to here. And, of course, one of the biggest things about like doing a huge change like this, be it the lineup, the style, everything that's going on with it, is that first impression. And so far, there's a three ways to be able to hear the new album right now with the three new singles that have been released before the album coming out on Friday. So, what was it like to like try to pick out songs to be able to show off this album?
Yeah, well, I definitely, I mean, I kind of knew which songs would be best for like singles. I mean, some of them are just too long to be singles. So that eliminates a few of them right there. And then yeah, I mean, kind of just by process of elimination, it's pretty easy to pick them out. Um, like I wanted to release like the first single was the song From Dust of Heaven Shattered. I felt like that was a good first one to release because it has kind of like the end is slower and heavier, has some shredding going on, and it has Sky and I both on vocals. Like the higher vocals at the end of the song are Sky. So it kind of, and it also had, some of my favorite drum parts that Asher came up with. So it just kind of felt like the right song to come out first. And it's still like one of my favorite songs. And then the second one, Shadow of a Behemoth, is a slower, heavier song, uh, which I thought would be, it's like basically the only one that's like shorter and also heavier and slower. And then Sky's song, Planetary Accretion, like, partially, just to like show his input in the band, and then just the fact that it's like this crazy technical fun song to listen to. Like, yeah, it was pretty easy, I think, to choose those three songs.
And obviously, you've heard my impressions of it. We were able to go back and forth with it, and of course, everything that I'm saying here. But what has been the impression so far from everyone else who's gotten the chance to be able to hear this stuff? Like, what have you seen online and from people that you trust?
I mean, it's all been positive so far. Like, I haven't had like tons and tons of people yet, like reaching out to me about it. I mean, it's only like a relatively, we don't have like a big following at this point or anything. So, but it's all been positive, which is nice because I mean, I wasn't really expecting like a backlash or anything from people that may have liked the first album. But I feel like there are probably a few people out there that really liked the instrumental stuff and that might not like the vocal stuff as much. But yeah, pretty much just generally positive, which is nice.
I'm so glad to hear that too, because every time that I do spin the album, I do love it more and more, and I'm able to find more layering to what's going on. I'm able to pick out more parts to it, and I'm be it more lyrically, be it hearing drum parts, guitar parts, whatever. Like I'm able to pick up on something every time that I listen to it, something new, and it has honestly become one of my favorite albums of the year so far. Like before we started recording, like I mentioned, coming up on Friday, I will have covered 300 albums this year, and I consider this to be some of the most top tier stuff that I've heard this year. And honestly, for like the progressive death metal side, the more technical side that goes with it in that style, I haven't heard anything better this year. Like this is some of the best stuff that I've heard. And honestly, when it comes to your work and when I get to discover the other guys as well, when their back catalog, but specifically for you, Max, like this is some of the best work I've ever heard you do. And it's just so awesome to hear that here.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, yeah, that really is just great to hear because, you never know what people are going to think until it gets out there. But but yeah, I mean, whereas the first album was really just like pretty much me and also my our former band member Jake wrote some of that stuff, but I basically recorded everything, recorded the bass, programmed the drums, and also had a friend like play some electronic drums. Um, but it was just like more of a solo thing, really. And then this time there were a lot more people involved, and I think that really made it a lot better too. It's like uh, Sky's bass parts that he came up with, like I wouldn't have written those same parts. And like he even did, there's like a little mini bass solo at the end of Shadow of a Behemoth that I really love that like I definitely would not have thought to do that. And I love that little moment and just like, yeah, just so nice to not have it be all me, basically. It's just like it feels better and it like turns out a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. I can hear that from, from the musician's aspect, the listener aspect. Like this does feel like the first full album from the Mantle because it does feel like it's a full band this time because it is a full band this time. Yeah. Being able to incorporate all of that stuff. And that's got me so excited for the future as well too, because if this is what you're doing here and like everything is still kind of forming, everything's going this direction, it's got me so excited for the next release as well too. Once that chemistry gets built up even more, the more directions that everything could possibly go, heavier, lighter, more experimental, more straightforward. I mean, it's limitless where things could go from here, and that's got me so excited.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel like for me, now that I do vocals, like I don't know, I felt kind of constrained by the instrumental stuff. Like, you know, I mean, I could have always like reached out to vocalists to try to work with them, but I guess I just like to be able to do everything myself for the most. I mean, when I'm writing a song, like be if there are going to be vocals, like I guess I didn't want to have to work with a vocalist. I mean, besides Sky, but now that I do it myself, like just when I come up with a riff, I feel like I don't have to try to rework it to be interesting as an instrumental riff. It's just like if it's a cool riff, like the fact that I do vocals now, it just makes it easier to make it into a song, and it's like the kind of music that I actually love the most. So that's like that was the biggest thing pretty much ever for me as a songwriter is like starting to do vocals. Really like opened up my creativity, I think. And yeah, so now it's like any style of metal is sort of an option now.
So thinking about that, like obviously with the album coming out on Friday, and I can't wait to be able to show off this interview with that. I can't wait to show off the album review I'm going to be doing with that as well too. What's next after this?
Well, um, we want to play shows, of course. Like we have one show booked for October, which we haven't announced yet, but that's going to be fun. And then hopefully we'll be able to start playing a lot more often. Like I would love to tour, and it kind of depends on how this album is received and like who hears it and all that. But yeah, I mean touring would be great. Like that's been my goal for forever basically. And we've been discussing like the next album, and I've come up with a bunch of demos of like stuff I've been writing recently. I mean, we're not like totally set on anything, but basically more of a melodic death metal direction, I think, is where we're going to be going after this album with, kind of a more classic melodic death metal sound is like just what I've been coming up with. I think Sky and Asher are into that idea too. But
Very
we still
much
have a
so.
lot of writing to do.
I've been more in gear collection mode
Well,
recently,
yeah.
or putting my studio together, but now it's pretty much more than enough complete. So we'll be able to write some crazy drum parts, and whenever we have time to all meet up in Long Island, then we can write. That'll be
Mhm.
definitely a thing we're doing in the next over the next year.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you keep just trying to win me over with every release. I mean, like being a first album, like a shredding instrumental stuff, which I love. This album, more like on the progressive technical side of death metal, which I love. Next album, more on the melodic death metal side. Like, yeah, every single time, it's just like you got my anticipation building for all of this, and I say that a lot because I do love what you do so much. Whether it's in the Mantle, whether you're doing guest spots, whether you're working with your dad on solos, which I told you before is like one of my favorite musical aspects ever, was just seeing you trade solos with your dad. But like, I'm so excited for the future of all this because I can already tell just from this, like, there's a lot of great chemistry that's going on with this lineup. It really feels like you respect each other enough so much to be able to give each other ideas of what to look forward to in the future and everything that's going to be going forward. And I just want to see the Mantle thrive. And that's why I'm so honored that you wanted to do an interview with me, that you wanted to be able to show off the album to me ahead of time so I could check it out and like give you my honest thoughts before we can even do this and before I do the review. Like all of this means so much to me. And I thank you so much for all of that.
Yeah, man. Like I said before, you're one of the most like well-versed. The amount of music that's been inside of those ears is just absolutely insane. And I'm just so glad that you like what we are doing. Like it really, like I honestly, if I don't hear any other positive feedback, it doesn't matter because like I know that you like it. So
Oh, seriously, that especially today, that means just so much to hear that. And again, I just want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this. I'm looking at my Zoom and I see it's about to close out on me, so unfortunately, I gotta wrap this up. But I just want to thank you guys so much again for taking the time to do this. Everyone that's going to be checking this out, of course, the album comes out on Friday from the Mantle. Yeah, I mean, unless something spectacular comes out in the next 4 months, this is easily going to be top five, top 10 album for me. And again, I've already done 300 reviews this year. So, I mean, it's really that huge top tier for me because this is what I love to listen to so much. And I respect all three of you so much and what you're doing and yeah, the musical capabilities. I can't wait to check out Frog as well. Like I'm definitely gonna be checking that out after I'm done with editing the review here. But again, Max, Asher, Sky, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
For sure. Thanks
Thanks
for
Yeah,
having us.